Welcome to your Daily 5 for Monday, April 21st, 2025. I recently finished reading a book from 2018 titled Severance. Now, interestingly, this book came up on a recommendation list for people who like the Apple TV show Severance, but in fact, it really has nothing to do with anything that Severance is about outside of the fact that the main character works in a cubicled office. So I feel like this suggestion was really made more on the title than anything in terms of the book itself, because besides, again, the protagonist working in an office for a good portion of the book, there is absolutely nothing that crosses over with the TV show Severance. Now, I don't really care, but that's just funny. I mean, the title is the same word, and there's an office. Well, there's lots of books where there are offices. So if you saw that same list and you haven't read this book yet, I've got news for you. Nothing like the TV show. But having finished the book now, I actually have to say this is a book that as I was going through it, now it's from 2018, but it feels like a pandemic. Well, it is a pandemic book. It is about a fungal infection that sweeps the planet and is, I think, highly pathogenic is the correct term. It wipes out, it's got a high fatality rate, that's for sure. Well, not fatality is the wrong word. It's a fungal infection that mimics many of the qualities of like a Romero zombie, where people basically lose all their cognitive function and just repeat things that they are familiar with in life. So if you were in an office and you were, I don't know, cleaning light fixtures, when you became fevered, you would just keep cleaning light fixtures until your body just failed entirely. But they weren't aggressive, they don't attack, there's nothing like that. They're just kind of sad remnants of people who existed before. And the main character is one of a small group of people who seem to be immune from it. Now, that's one of the things I think the book is vague on, is how immune anybody actually is. I don't know that anyone really is immune, or some people are just lucky and or cautious. And this character basically starts off in New York City as this fever sweeps through it. Again, very COVID style, but before the pandemic. And then ends up with a bunch of people who are on the road to some place that the leader of the group feels is where they can basically stay and hang out. It's unclear what the main goal is once they reach this place. And I won't spoil what happens when they finally get there. Getting there, I guess, is a spoiler in itself, but not really. You kind of know they're going to get there. And the book, like I said, the book itself, the story is perfectly fine. It does feel like it's very specifically reflective of the author's cultural background, which I think is great. It has a very specific feel to it. There's a lot of things in there that reflect a young woman who comes from a very different culture than the United States, and I think that's all wonderful and informs the personality of the book. The book itself has an interesting ending because I think it's debatable whether it's a happy ending or not. There are elements of hope to it, but there's also kind of an underlying question that isn't ever specifically answered that I think everybody will have a different take on. And so that might change the nature of the ending. But overall, I really liked it. It was different from a lot of things that I read. It has this interesting pace. It's basically there's a lot of flashbacks. So this main character is going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And, you can see that the kind of her memories and her background are starting to sort of inform the present, whereas at the beginning, it's more of just remembering something. As the book goes on, it becomes more of an imperative to how she's going to react to what's going on. And it does have this interesting atmosphere to it because, again, it's not a COVID book, but it sure feels like one, like an alternate pandemic type of book, which is what it is. And so having gone through COVID, as we all have, I think it changes the nature of the book. If I had read this before the pandemic, I'm not sure it would have stuck with me as much. But now, having been through that, to think about what would have happened if COVID had been more deadly, if it had actually killed far more people, this might have been the result, some of the things that happen in here. And it's not quite a Mad Max apocalypse future, but it's also not all that far from one. But again, not that severe. There aren't roaming bandits that are going around massacring people. Not everybody is, paying themselves up and worshiping V8 or anything like that. V8 the engine, not the drink. But it does have this feeling of a kind of post-apocalyptic book without all of the misery, or not the totality of the misery. So I would recommend it. I think it's an interesting read. So again, Severance, the author's name is Ling Ma, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from 2018, a book that I think is worth reading. Later.